Hello everyone, Effie here. Today I'm going to show you how I made this card using our vintage frame set and some of our new gilding that was released a few weeks ago. This video was supposed to be posted on the day of the gilding release, but I am so sorry I could not edit the video in time, and I had videotaped it, but I just didn't have the time, and I really didn't want the video to go to waste, so I edited the video and I'm posting it now, and I hope that you guys will still enjoy it even though it's about 2 weeks late. So let's get started with the card. I'm using 3 of the intricate frames from our vintage frame set, which was released in our initial release, and it's probably one of my most favorite sets in the entire collection. There's so much detail in the antique frames, and when you pair the modern frames that are included in the set, you can create a really pretty, modern, chic, and sophisticated wall gallery. Now let's get started with the card. I aligned the 3 antique frames on my panel and I closed the lid of my MISTI. But then I realized that one of the frames was on slightly crooked, so I just kind of peeled it off and aligned it along the grid lines to make sure that they were straight. Then I'm going to ink up the stamps with some Hero Hues black dye ink, and then I'm going to close the lid of my MISTI onto the card panel where it's going to stamp the 3 antique frames onto the panel. And I actually wasn't happy with the impression that I got the first time that I stamped it, so what I did was I just closed the lid and stamped it a second time. Since we're making a shaker card today, we need to create some windows to put all the confetti and glitter and gems in. Actually, we're not using glitter. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting out the inside of the frames, and I have to give credit for this idea to my customer, Lisa Banks-Laif. She actually came up with this idea first. She posted a photo of one of her wonderful cards on her blog after she purchased this set, and she actually described it as performing card surgery, and the description is so accurate. So Lisa, thank you for the idea. I'm casing your card and I hope you really like this card. I just used some thick cardboard or chipboard to put under my card panel as I cut out the windows because I wanted to protect my craft mat. Then I took a black piece of cardstock that I'm going to put behind my cutout panel. Now you can see here that I have a rectangle stitched black cardstock, but honestly you don't need a rectangle stitched piece of cardstock because this is going to go behind the card panel and you're not even going to see the stitching. So any piece of cardstock that you want to put behind your cutout panel will do. Next, I took the black cardstock and I temporarily adhered it behind my cutout panel because I am doing this because I want to make sure that the sentiment and the little deer head that I stamp inside the windows are aligned and centered within the frames. The sentiment that I'm using is from the same set. I'm just going to stamp the 2 separate words "love you" in one frame and then the little deer head in the other frame. I just love this little deer head. We do have another set. It's the Sketchy Menagerie set with all the animal heads, but I just wanted to include a little deer head image in this one because they're just so popular in modern decor these days. And this was all based on faux taxidermy, not real taxidermy, because real animal heads scare me. Now, I stamped these in Hero Arts Pigment ink in Unicorn White. I took the 2 pieces apart and I'm going to set aside the black cardstock to dry because the pigment ink does take longer to dry. Now I'm going to take a piece of clear acetate and I'm going to kind of measure it behind the cutout panel, and I'm going to cut out sections that are slightly larger than the cutout windows because it's going to be adhered onto the back of this panel, so they have to be slightly larger than the windows. After I finish measuring the acetate, I'm going to take my Tombow stamp runner and adhere the acetate sheets onto the back of the cutout panel. I'm only cutting out acetate for the 2 frames on the top because Those are the only frames that I'm making shakers out of. For the frame on the bottom, I'm not going to need acetate because I'm going to be sticking a gem behind the panel for the bottom frame. So that won't need a shaker window because there will be nothing shaking in that window. I ended up taking my heat gun to the black cardstock because the white pigment ink wasn't dry yet. It sat for about 2 minutes or so, but that wasn't enough time for it to dry. And you can see that my black cardstock warped a little from the heat, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it because it's going to be adhered down onto my card base, so you won't really be able to tell. Next, here are the shaker elements that I'm going to be using for our shaker card. I'm using our mini stars in light blue and gold. I'm going to mix the two stars together, but I'm going to put a little bit more of the light blue stars in there because I wanted to match the light blue heart gem that I'll be using for the window on the bottom. Next, I'm just going to take a piece of small scrap paper and I'm going to move the stars around so that I'll be able to see the stamped images within the cluster of the stars. I want to make sure that when I put down the die cut, or rather the cut panel, that I'm placing it or adhering it directly over the stamped images. Next, I'm going to put down foam tape behind the cutout windows. For the two frames on top, I'm going to make sure that the foam tape are close to each other and that there are no holes because this is where the mini stars are going to be. However, for the frame on the bottom, I'm not going to worry too much about the foam tape being so close together. It just has to be behind the paper or the cardstock along the bottom portion of that card panel to make sure that the depth is consistent with the rest of the card panel. Once I'm satisfied with the amount of foam tape behind my cut panel, I'm going to adhere it directly over the stamped image and the cluster of mini stars. I had to shake it around a few times because I couldn't resist, and the mini stars just look so pretty in the shaker. After giving it a few shakes, I got ready to adhere this light blue gem into the bottom frame. Now remember, this bottom frame, we did not attach any acetate to it because there isn't going to be any shaker elements. I'm using Ranger Matte Multi-Medium to adhere the gem onto the black card panel. It's a really strong adhesive, but if you don't have it, you can also use glossy accents. That works well, and that was my dog barking. Sorry about that. If you don't have either of these, I'm sure you can use Tombow Mono Multi-Liquid Adhesive. It's a really strong adhesive. I don't see why it wouldn't work. The shaker portion is now finished. I'm going to take this part of the card and adhere it onto a rectangle stitched panel that I've pre-cut. It's basically going to be a mat for the shaker portion of the card. I really like using black mats behind my stamped panels because it adds a really pretty contrast to the card without overpowering the card. It just adds a really pretty black border and it's very subtle. Finally, I'm ready to mount the finalized shaker portion onto my card base. I'm just using an A2 size card base that is side folding. And there you have it. Here is my finalized shaker card. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you got a closer look at some of the new gilding that we're offering in our shop. So I hope you really enjoyed this card. I enjoyed making it. Here's a closer look. I hope you guys like it. Thanks for stopping by and see you next time. Bye!